So the last presentation for today, it's gonna be design pattern in test automation. I believe like most of you guys are already in a QA and in particular in test automation field, right? So you kind of know the drill, but maybe some of you are just started learning. So hopefully it will help you a little bit more with understanding of this all JSON wire protocols and everything. Just kidding. Right. All right, so this is agenda, and we're gonna talk about agenda, of course, right? So who've seen this? C# people. Let's try not to, right? Who's using Stack Overflow on a daily basis? Okay, few hands. All right, that's just. I was writing the presentation and at the same time was working on something. Just saw it and I'm like, okay. But it shows me the level of your knowledge a little bit, right? Anyway, so I'm gonna introduce myself briefly, and then we will talk about design patterns in general, and then different layers of those patterns, like 1, 2, 3 layer patterns, and we'll touch briefly testing pyramid. So yeah, that's me. I've been working in QA field for quite a while with companies like Toyota, Walt Disney, Hearst Corporation. The last project that I was working on was United States Census Bureau. We've been preparing. It's actually still ongoing, but I left the company. Census 2020, which is a big of a deal, right? And now I'm just a co-founder of Test Pro. So.
Sneak the citizenship question in there.
I'm actually in the middle of naturalization process, so yeah. So yeah, this is a disclaimer. Feel free to read it, of course. Right. But yeah, just in short, it's all very subjectional. You don't have to agree with me. So what are design patterns? Basically, it's just a reusable solution that someone already kind of created, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, really, like this, right? Well, this guy doesn't know anything about patterns, really, right? But it's cool. So let's talk about one-layer patterns. And Jim has this part in his presentation today about like record and play. Do you guys use it, or have you ever used that? Just a bit? Okay, good for you. Good for you. Yeah, of course, this is the very first level, really. The easiest starting point. And the good thing, yeah, there is a Selenium recorder that will allow you to actually perform your actions in the browser, and it will generate Java code, or I believe not only Java, but some other code as well. So you don't have to code at all, but you get some code back, right? So of course, process quick and easy, no coding required. Like, and it looks cool. I mean, if you show that to your grandma, she will say that you're a hacker, right? But on the other hand, of course, there is no assertion. It's just a step-by-step whatever was actions performed in the browser. So it's really not enough for actual testing, right? Because you usually want to validate some certain values, expected versus actual. Of course, no code reuse. It's just a lot of boilerplate code, hard to read. Used to be one browser. And of course sync issues because it's not handled at all. So another one is a boilerplate, and I found that this particular framework, Cucumber Boilerplate framework, we actually give it as a part of our basic course in a Test Pro, And the beauty of it, it's actually, again, it's no coding required. It's a cucumber. All that you need to do is really provide the locators. And most of the steps are predefined for you already, so you don't even have to record anything. You just do like click and then provide this locator for element and like expect something. So it's still quick, it's easy, it has all the weights and assertions, it has all the browser support, and it's a human readable format, so it's not really any programming language, but it's Cucumber. But at the same time, now you have to know how to actually find those locators. In the previous example, it was all given by basically recorder. This time you have to figure this out on your end. For some of you, it can be challenging actually. It can be challenging. Yeah, it's a boilerplate code, so no code reuse again. And it's only for web automation. So there is another one called Oxygen. Have you guys heard about Oxygen framework? Oh, wow. Okay.
This is East Coast.
So it's a JavaScript, right? So it is no longer Cucumber, it's actual code. It's pretty flexible. It has a lot of predefined methods for you. Most of them like click, type something. It has all the assertions. On top of that, it actually has a database and API connections built in. So if you need to do some dynamic data provider for your test, you can actually pull that from database somewhere, which is kind of, I think, pretty balanced when it comes to like functionality and the amount of like technical knowledge that you should have. So yeah, again, locators here is on you. Code reuse, so-so. It's a JavaScript. Who likes JavaScript? Yay! Who doesn't like JavaScript? That's so funny. I'm just trolling you, but yeah, JavaScript databases API support, which is very nice, I think, for such a simple framework, right? Because you don't have to know like JDBC and all that stuff in this case. And yeah, it's pretty easy. So another one is Selenide, which is really not like object-oriented programming, right? But who heard about Selenide? You're a C# guy. No, not at all, right? Yeah, so for if you've never heard about Selenide, it's a library for Java, but they have quite a few ports in different languages. Not that well supported though. There is a one for C# and Selene. There is another one for Python, I believe, which I've never used. I don't program in Python, but I know it exists. So what they're saying over there, it's basically a set of static methods. So you can see there is no object reference anywhere. And the kind of cool thing is, you see the $sign over there? And then set value. You're like, hold on. You say it like concise UI test in Java, like how come it's jQuery, right? Exactly. So this is jQuery-alike syntax for Java. And the good thing about it, if you want to figure out some locators, let's say, you can just open console and you can play around. And for jQuery, for console, this is find element by CSS basically, right? So you can just copy that whole thing, including $sign, and paste that into your Java code, and magically it works. But it's not just kind of jQuery-like syntax. It's a lot of things that it has, like should appear, should disappear, all of those weights, assertions, including like by text, because technically speaking, in Selenium, by text is kind of like XPath kind of thingy right here. You just say by text. You don't care. It works somehow. But yeah, it's kind of, again, boilerplate and everything in your test, basically. Locators, test data, like everything, right? Of course, I had another, I used to work with another guy, and he was like, yeah, come on, but it's not even Selenium WebDriver API anymore. I'm like, yeah, but it does the job, right? So some of the people could be concerned because it's like, it's not something that they will ask you on the interview, right? And it's at the same moment, you have to learn another API, and if you're not familiar with the Selenium WebDriver itself, now it's like twice more work for you. Well, Java again. Remember last time JavaScript? Now it's Java. Who likes Java? Who doesn't like Java? Okay, yeah, I'm just trolling you again. It is what it is, right? It's concise, of course. It has a lot of support when it comes to browsers. I mean, now it's technically it's Java, so you can do whatever you want, but it may look not the same because it's not OOP at all. You can kind of mix two different principles and one which is, I don't know, kind of smelly, right? All right, let's switch to two-layer patterns. So page object model. Like, what? The same test case? Right? So what do we have here? Who's familiar with page object model? I mean, you all have to, right? It's nothing to do with the Selenium WebDriver. It's just object-oriented programming. Just that's it, period, right? So yeah, if you work with Java or any other object-oriented programming language, I mean, it's a must-have. So basically, in this case, you have two layers here. You have your test case, which is this. It's a very, I'm not sure if you can really read anything. And then, huh?
It's hard to read.
Yeah, but yeah, so this is your test case, and these are the pages. So basically, you create classes that will represent your pages, and that will allow you to do basically anything that those pages can possibly do. For example, login. You can log in, you can enter email, you can enter password. So it's abstracted, and you call those objects, you reference them in your test method over there. And it's, of course, it's much more code now, right? So with this approach, it takes time, of course, because you have to create all those classes. Maybe not completely like all the functionality, but at least the most important ones. So yeah, it's a lot of code. It's skilled labor already. So you have to be familiar with OOP, and then it brings you to basically becoming developer anyways, right? Yes, it's domain specific. So you're building your domain specific language here. It's OOP, and at the same time it's OOP. So right, maintainability versus effort, right?
Saves time in the future.
Yeah, exactly. So you invest more time now to save time after. Yeah, it's efficient and scalable. It's OOP again, so you're now a developer. Who heard about pages inside of WebDriver pattern? What the hell is that? So it's basically kind of the same, but here you have your, like, not the pages, but the actual methods, and you pass your driver within like the steps. I don't know if you can guys see here, but you have your steps, which is really like actions. So you're not referring to pages, but to actions themselves. I don't think it's like the most popular, really. Yeah, as you can see here, it's like a lot of driver find element, but at the same time, it's encapsulated and customizable and code reuse. Another one is Selenide page object. So it's a mix of the Selenide, but now in conjunction with a page object model. Again, here can be questionable because it's a mix of static methods versus like the original ones, but it can be very powerful and pretty concise. So yeah, it's a mixed, and that's another dependency, of course, in your project. And if you work for a large project, you keep adding those dependencies, and at certain point you figure that, oh, I actually already had something similar, but now I've added some another JSON parser, for example. Like, why? Maybe not you, but someone else. But yeah, it's jQuery and OOP, everything.
Oh,
Yeah, Page Factory. So Page Factory. So you guys all know Page Factory, right? I mean, if you know Page Object Model, probably heard about Page Factory, right? So this is yeah, it depends on language. It was an initial approach, so there is some intersection now, right?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
So the Page Factory showed up in the Java language bindings for Selenium as the original intent was, this is an example of something you can do in Java with Selenium. Hey, maybe you want to define your pages by using Java annotations to find the elements. Here's a way you might consider doing that. The actual implementation of the Page Factory doing that in Java is, as my good friend Simon would say, suboptimal, and you know, it's there. The .NET bindings grew a Page Factory implementation because Java had one, and that was a mistake, and it should not. There is no need to use the Page Factory to create a proper page object system, and so in .NET, the Page Factory class has been deprecated, and in Selenium 4, you'll have to use an external package for .NET in Selenium 4.
It's still there, but it's on a side, right, in a separate package.
In .NET, it's now moved to a separate package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, the idea was pretty good. Implementation, as you mentioned, questionable. I feel like if you kind of want to do it that way, using it with the Selenide would be kind of nicer, maybe. But again, it's my opinion. So, yeah, code base is growing because of all of those annotations. Another dependency, right? But reuse of elements and your methods now kind of look clean, at least when it comes to page object model, right? So you can clearly read it and see like what are you clicking, what are you doing, which is kind of nice, I think. So now 3-layer patterns. So who likes cucumber? For eating or? Yeah, so cucumber with the page object. Basically, yeah, it's the same test case again, right? Logging in, but now we have 3 files here. The one here, it's not even programming language, right? It's in gherkin language. And Cucumber is an actual test automation tool that uses gherkin language to convert the regular plain English text into the programming kind of language, right? So you can actually run that thing. But in order to do so, you need to have another class here that will map those steps with actual code. And here you will use the page object model, which is another one. So it's even more coding, right? So my personal opinion, I hate that a lot about Cucumber. It's a runtime. When you if you're like C# or Java developer, a runtime is just you get this like missing bindings issues and like at runtime, which is like crazy, right? But on the other hand, a lot of layers. It's OOP. It's don't repeat yourself. Like everything that you can only imagine is there, right? Which is good. So another one is composition of page elements. So this is the example on how you can actually, also called like widgets, right? So you can reuse some pieces, some larger elements of pages across the pages, for example. So those are not like real pages, but widgets that can be on one page, on another page, and another page. So you basically, you're familiar with the decomposition, right? So you can compose your pages by using those pieces. And those are, could be just separate classes, but of course you cannot just open, sometimes you can actually open even just a little widget on a page. But now your page object model would consist of those widgets, and those widgets would have those elements, so it's becoming like more deep, right? And then another one, especially, for example, for my project, where I used to work, census, if you ever want a job, get a job and apply at least for census job, you know, these guys next year who will be going and chasing after you and getting all that information that otherwise you would never give to anyone, including your like salaries and everything, right? So for them, it's actually a pretty tough process. The hiring process is pretty tough. There is like a workflow of 30-something pages with 300-something fields that they have to submit, some of them twice or even thrice. And based on the input, the workflow decides either this applicant is eligible or not, or maybe some certain edge case, for example, fingerprints or something else. But how would you automate? You cannot really jump around. So if you want to test like some page in the middle, you have to get there somehow, right? So what you would need to do is implement the workflow that will be like this one. There will be a transition between the pages, page after page after page after page, till you actually hit the page under the test, so you can actually start testing. So precondition is pretty heavy here, right? And that leads to another one. It's a data-driven workflows, and that was my case. I had to generate 300 fields upfront, and based on that data, it will take like certain route and land to certain page. And then we had over like 80 different user states. So it's just crazy how complicated it becomes. With the time, it turns to be something like this, right? Which leads us to the next question. So according to test pyramid, so which one, as a test automation engineers, which one should we use, this or this?
The right one.
I'm showing the right one, right? Because this is anti-pattern, the ice cream cone. So, and this actually, a lot of companies, they actually do it this way. Developers are so busy, they're like, oh, we don't have time for unit testing, like we're screwed every day, every sprint, we cannot deliver, we work after hours, and whatever excuses they can come up with. And then they hire automation engineers that will jump on 3,000 test cases and try to automate them, basically automating the whole application. But it takes more time and effort, right? If you want to do that, you pretty much what you're doing is re-implementing the same application but from the other perspective. So to automate some of those test cases, especially in companies, they say like we want to have some coverage around like 90%, right? I mean, is it like UI 90% or functionality 90%? So they usually treat it like UI 90%. Whatever you guys have, manual testers, we want to automate it all, right? 100% ideally. But what we should actually do is this, right? And in that case, something, you can do it this way again, right? So I'm gonna keep this question open, like what should you guys do, how you do it. So anyways, thanks for letting me troll you today. Do you guys have any questions for me?